Sir, I will now come to the great lacunae or drawbacks in this scheme of tax on dividends because it has to be considered only on the paid up capital. Sir, many concerns are undercapitalized. Many concerns have 10 times more in the reserves than in the capital, or even 20 times more, and the price of equity shares is governed by the reserves and capital. The same thing is seen in the case of the banking companies, where they are called own funds. So, whether it is capital or whether it is reserves, I think, sir, they should be treated on par. I do not know why the finance minister has taken this attitude of not taking the paid up capital and reserves together. On the basis of having the paid up capital and reserves together, he would have made the slabs narrower than what they are today. Today, the slabs are 6% to 10% and 10% to 18% and over 18%. If he had taken both items together, then the slabs would have been narrower, but that is ultimately the scientific structure, in my opinion, for levying taxes on dividends. After having taken this step, I would request him to do one more thing. If people make an application for converting reserves into capital, permission should be given very generously. There should be no hindrance in the way of companies converting their reserves into capital. Such a change would serve the purpose that we have in view, because once the reserves are converted into capital, they will be used only for expansion, for renovation, and for reconditioning. They will be used in a manner which will serve the cause of the country, because if the capital is to be reduced subsequently, then permission or sanction of the government is required. Therefore, sir, I suggest that ultimately return should be calculated on paid up capital and reserves put together, and this is more scientific. Sir, let us see what good will be achieved by this tax on dividends. Either people will pay taxes on dividends, or they will plow back the profits into industry, and by this process, industrialization will not be retarded, but in my opinion, it will be accelerated. People will be forced to plow back their profits for fear of having to pay more. Sir, it may be said that the finance minister is very hard on industry at present, and it has been said so in many quarters, but we have to look to one concession that he has given in clause 6 regarding section 23. He has reduced the percentage of distribution from 60 to 50. I think, sir, this is a very welcome feature. This was overdue, because if industrial concerns want to plow back the profits for expansion or for reconditioning and renovation, they should be allowed to do so. This gives us an idea about his inclination, which is that the country should be industrialized at a fast pace, and on this account, he has given this concession. He is giving exemptions in certain cases in order that the concerns may expand by not distributing any dividend. In giving such exemptions, I hope he will be very generous. Now, sir, I would come to the third point about depreciation allowance, development rebate, and compulsory deposit. This has been a very controversial point amongst the industrial and business circles, and rightly so. In the bill as it has been drafted, government have taken too much power for asking concerns to deposit a percentage on account of profits and gains before the 30th of June if certain conditions exist regarding reserves, fixed assets, and so on. He has done this with a purpose, and I quite understand it, but the way in which it is put is simply embarrassing to those who are carrying on business and industry. He has assured us that he will use this power in the most liberal manner, but that assurance could very well have been implemented by having some changes in the clause brought before the House because this deposit has to be made before the 30th of June. Because it has to be made before the 30th of June, you know that 90% of the concerns are borrowers, and a borrower cannot be asked to deposit earlier. Therefore, 1 month before, let him know that so much profits and reserves would be exempted. A borrower cannot be asked to make a compulsory deposit. Sir, although the Honorable Minister has assured us that he will be very liberal in this connection, I feel that it should have been in the bill itself rather than in the rules, if he at all means that. As regards working capital, no mention is made that the genuine needs of working capital will be provided in this rule for compulsory deposit, because when the concern requires working capital, it should be fully provided. Mr. Chairman, we note that the Territorial Army was inaugurated in our country by the Act of 1920. For a period of something like 28 years, it did not have a much important role to play inside our country, though during this period the country has witnessed the Second World War, and as far as our country was concerned, enemies also entered from the east, the Japanese forces. After 28 years after we attained independence, another act was passed in 1948 in order to bring the Territorial Army under a new setup. The present bill was introduced in May 1954 in the Lok Sabha, and it is after 2 years that it has reached the final stage. This delay of 2 years in taking up this measure shows what little interest we take in matters of defense, and particularly the role that the Territorial Army is likely to play in our country. Those of us who come from the former Indian states do feel that for some reason or other, for the last 7 or 8 years, we are not paying much attention to army matters. This we are noticing every day, and I will give a few instances which will show that that is the state of affairs as far as matters of defense are concerned. We treat this matter with complacency, but some day may come when probably we may have to regret the little interest we are taking in this all important matter. 4 or 5 months ago, we passed the Lok Sahayak Sena bill, and on that occasion also, I spoke and gave a little warning to the Honorable Minister for Defense, who himself was piloting that bill, that these matters were not taken seriously, and he assured me that that was not the case. Sir, I would submit that soon after that bill was passed, one camp was allotted to Bikaner division, or the former Bikaner state from where I come. The camp was opened in the first week of October, when I also happened to be in that area for some private work. Sir, the collector received an intimation from the Defense Ministry that from a particular date the camp would be started with 500 trainees. The collector arranged with the Chief Minister of Rajasthan to inaugurate the camp. Sir, during that period I happened to be there, and I know what a fiasco it was. There were no rations, there were no arrangements for camping, there was nothing whatsoever, and hardly a few people were collected in order to show that a camp had started. At least one on our side of the country, the notion is that this country only belongs to the Congress and not to others, and therefore only a few Congress volunteers were collected to see that somehow or other the camp was started, whosoever the people might be, whether they were fit for the purpose of training or not. This happened only about 2 months ago, and the Honorable Minister can verify these facts because I happened to be on the spot there. If this is how we take army and military matters, I only feel very sorry what will be the condition if we are to tackle serious matters or if we are involved in real warfare. Sir, I note with a little concern whenever replies are given in the House in regard to defense matters. I particularly refer in this connection to our army operations against the Nagas.